Nitratec gasoline and diesel. Available only at Rubis stations.
Welcome to Nurses Care, a new home healthcare company on Ireland, changing the way you receive healthcare. From registered nurses and aides to medical doctors and qualified physicians, we offer a wide range of healthcare services. From monitoring chronic conditions and medications to elderly care, pediatric care, and maternity nurses to even housekeeping and case management. We offer 24/7 in-house healthcare services. So contact us today for your in-house consultation at 439-3928.
Welcome to The Point. It is Thursday, May 26, 2022. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV channels 7, 11, and 20. And of course, good morning to the loyal listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9. Thank you once again for joining us on To The Point. I have joining me in studio this morning are two officers of the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. To my immediate right is Sergeant Kevon Williams, and to my extreme right is Constable Andy George. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Appreciate you both this morning.
Thank you very much.
Happy to have you. All right. So this morning, gentlemen, we're talking about the laws for driving under the influence of alcohol. And it comes at a time where Grenadians are getting ready or getting back into the fit life on the weekend and Spice Mass 2022. So I think it's pertinent information, especially for this time of the year. Let's first look at what we would call a definition for driving under the influence of alcohol. Does it involve, or how much alcohol does it involve? A corkful or a glass or a bottle?
Well, Blossom, good morning, and again good morning to the listeners of GBN and Hot 98.9 FM. Driving under the influence of alcohol don't necessarily means driving under the over the required amount. The mere fact that you're driving and you have consumed any volume of alcohol speaks to the offense. So driving under the influence of alcohol is driving while having alcohol in your system. The law says that it's an arrestable offense when you go past the required amount or the required level of alcohol.
Okay, I understand. Also, I can only get arrested and charged if it exceeds a certain amount. And what is that amount?
Well, what the law says the required amount is 70 micrograms of alcohol for 100 milliliter of blood. That's the required amount. And for blood, 600 micrograms of blood for every 100 milliliter of blood.
Okay, break that down into numbers for me because I can't measure. So that's 1 beer, 10 beers, one how do you call it again? One shot of rum. What break it down in?
Well, yes. Good morning. I'm Officer George, Constable George, right? 70 micrograms of alcohol, right? Will normally equivalent to about 5 beers within the hour. So if you have 5 beers within that hour, you will get a reading of 70 micrograms. Okay. But also, what we have to take into consideration also is that based on somebody's body type, right? Somebody's body type will influence the reading that you get. Okay. So, for instance, a female or a fat person, okay, you will take more alcohol to reach that level. Okay. And also, the strength of the beer will determine the amount as well. Okay. So there is beer that probably you get 5% alcohol, you get 7% alcohol. So in that case, if you have 7% alcohol, you would now drink less beer to reach the limit.
Okay. And what about, they say we're a rum nation, unfortunately, but what about rum and vodka and those? other alcoholic beverages.
Okay, as I would have stated also that the proof of that alcohol will determine how much.
Right.
Okay, so for instance, some alcohol would 3 shots would get you there. So when 1 shot could get you there. Also depend on your body mass. If you're a slim person, then you would remain. Okay.
Okay.
So that would determine too, and also sex. If sex is also a part. So if you're female and male, there is a different level of tolerance. Level would get you there.
How do you do the tests in the field? Do we have breathalyzer tests? Are all officers on the road equipped with those tests, or do we just have 1 or 2?
Okay. The test is done. Not all officers are equipped with the test. Okay, there is persons who are certified. Okay, I've been certified from 2018. Okay, from the US, and we have that test has been done in two phases. You have we have 2 machines that we use. One is the intoximeter FST. That we have done that test now to determine on the scene. Okay, and if possible, we have accumulate or over 70 micrograms, then we'll use our next machine, which is more complex, and we call that machine the intoximeter XL, right? That's where we get the evidential test now, right? That's the one that we use in the code of law. So you would enter that, and in the end of that, you would get a printout as to the person's alcohol level. Okay, so that is the one that we use when we decide to bring the matter to court. But there is the FST actually stands for Field Sobriety Test. Okay.
Right.
I do have the machine here with me, so I don't know if you want me to show you the difference.
Yes, please.
The difference in the machine.
Yes,
okay?
Please. Thanks.
So.
Yeah, you have it right by there?
Yeah, just a little way, so I could just step and get it.
So just go with it while I go get it while I speak to Sergeant Williams. Okay. So Sergeant Williams, in how cooperative are Grenadians generally when it comes to being stopped by police and maybe asked to do a breathalyzer test or other tests that we require in that instance?
Yeah, but we do get some cooperation. As a matter of fact, as we speak, I could speak to statistics. For the year thus far, we have done a number of tests on persons that we suspect was under the influence of alcohol. And from those tests, just about 10 persons was arrested. And they were arrested for driving under the influence. So they cooperated. We would have done those tests and they were arrested. In fact, in comparison to those persons that would have refused the breathalyzer test, the number is really, really low. About 2 persons was arrested for failing to submit to a breathalyzer test. So we've been getting some cooperation in that aspect. The thing about it is that we don't only want the cooperation for the breathalyzer examination. We want the cooperation more or less for the refusal to drink and drive. You understand? Because a number of accidents is happening on our nation's road because of persons being under the influence. Most of our call-outs are because of accidents, and the expert here would attest to the fact that on arrival on the scene, in his judgment, persons are under the influence, and we don't want that. What we really want is a cooperation. If you decide to drive, don't drink or have a designated driver. But we've been getting some cooperation from persons that we suspect is under the influence.
Well, before I go back to Constable George, so if you stop me and you suspect that I've been drinking, do I have to submit to the breathalyzer test?
Well, yes, the law says so long as the officer has reasonable grounds to believe that you as a driver or you a person in charge of a motor vehicle or person attempting to drive is under the influence of alcohol is obligated to cooperate, and contrary to that is arrest. Because in the event that you for some strange reason refuse to have the test done on you, leaves us to a formal arrest being executed on you for failing to comply.
So So it's up to, well, if the officer suspects. So if I know I only been drinking water whole night and that officer has something against me and my family and he's just trying to get me upset, so I ain't doing no breathalyzer test, I still need to do.
Well, that will only give you a good reason now to do the test, because officer have not been drinking any form of alcohol. In my judgment, I'm good. So go ahead and do the test. Why you refuse? So the law makes provision for that. If the officer believes in any way that you are under the influence of alcohol, you need to cooperate. Other than that, you will be arrested. Simple as that.
And what's the fine?
Well, what the law say for refusal? $500 or a maximum fine of $10,000. And for on a second count, he was convicted on the first count, and that as a repeated offender, you're back in court. The law said it goes up to maximum fine of $10,000, or imprisonment. So on the first count, it's $5,000. On the second count, it's $10,000. And the first count, your imprisonment term is 1 year. And the second count, as a repeated offender, is 12 years. It's 2 years, sorry.
What?
Yeah. So that's how serious it is. On the first count, you was convicted by a court of law. You expose yourself to the maximum fine of $5,000. You come back on a second count, you expose yourself to an increase at double, $10,000 or imprisonment for 2 years.
What? And what's the charge for driving under the influence?
Well, that's the charge. Driving motor vehicle while being under the influence of alcohol.
Also, what's the charge for failing to do the breathalyzer?
Yeah, failing to submit to a breathalyzer examination.
So it's the same charge, is the same...
Now, driving under the influence, after you would have exceeded the required amount of alcohol in your system, that's the charge, driving under the influence of alcohol. And the event that you refuse to provide specimen, it's failing to submit to breathalyzer examination.
If I've been arrested and charged for driving under the influence, what's the maximum fine and imprisonment?
Well, it's same thing, the same.
Oh, okay. Is it same 5,000 and 1 year and 10,000 and 2 years
yes,
for both offenses?
Both offenses.
Okay, all right.
If
I may say, interject here, also for public service vehicles also. Okay, you also exposed to the possibility that your license could be suspended on the second charge, right? And as Sergeant of Arrest stated, driving, that offense doesn't mean that when you speak of being charged of that motor vehicle, or you attempt to drive that motor vehicle as well. So if the officer see you approaching that vehicle, right, it could be charged, it could be approach and make a request that breathalyzer be test if the officer believe that he was driving. Okay, and you will make mention of the officer having bias towards you and your family and so forth. Okay, there is when the officer get to the scene, there is special trait that the officer look for. Okay, like a slurring of speech, you staggering, most persons they're very talkative, and so forth. Right, so there is these things that will determine whether or not you will get the scent of alcohol coming from the breath as he speaks and so forth, and then you use that to determine, whether or not that person required to have a field test done. Okay. So,
and earlier you mentioned, Constable Georgia, that you underwent the training for this. How many officers of the 4 the traffic department have gone under this training? What's it like with the training? How long is it and so?
Okay, well, that training would have been like in basically two phases. Okay, as I was this year is they call it the alcohol sensor FST. That this has been done on the scene. Okay, as the first. So that's what you do, and you have determined whether or not the person will have exceeded the required amount. Okay, and during that training, there was about maybe about 20 of us, 20 officers, and that was the first phase. Right? That was done here, hosted. The host came in and did that training, and we were certified then. And we also had a follow-up training that we have done via the Zoom online. So the host was based in Trinidad, which is the headquarters for that company.
Okay.
And islands officers from different islands was participant of that forum. So that phase was done roughly over a 2 weeks period.
And how often do you have to do training, or once you're certified, that's it? Do you have refresher courses in this area as well?
Well, from 2008, I never had a refresher's course, but I would have engaged in some in-house training as well, locally. So I never would have done from the initial instructors. I never would have done a refresher's course.
Okay. Right. So you wanted to demonstrate the 2 types of breathalyzer tests.
As I was stating earlier, this is the AlcoSensor FST, right? There is two buttons here, right? One is the power button to the front, and we would actually squeeze the power button and it would give you a reading of the temperature. Okay, after we do this, we use this here, we call it a straw. Okay, so most of the time you have to use, not most of the time, all the time you have to use a new straw. So you have to show the accused or the suspect that the straw is new. Okay, I would advise them that if the straw is not new, okay, that's a grounds that they could refuse and get away, that the straw is not ensure that the straw is not contaminated and so forth, right? So you rip this off, right? Okay, there is two compartment here. Okay, we will actually insert this like this. Okay,
let me get a little zoom in.
Yes,
so viewers can.
There you come right.
There we go.
Okay, right. Yeah. And after we insert that, you will see it might BLO, that means blow. So you will actually see a mouth like somebody's blowing. So we ask them to blow in this instrument and keep blowing until you would have taken enough breath, okay? And then it will give a click, right? So you get, so you hear the click, okay? So then now you give you a reading, okay? The thing about it that if you blow too low, it will show you insufficient air. If you blow too hard, it will show you excess, okay? So you have to blow consistently. You cannot stop. And then you stop, it will give you a default reading, okay?
So what was your reading, officer?
0.
Okay, just check it.
So after you would have done this here, you would have given the person 15 minutes break, okay? It is allowed that you give them 15 minutes break to eliminate any alcohol in the mouth, okay? Because if you just use a mouthwash that has other things that have alcohol, you would give a reading. So alcohol would dissolve within the 15 minutes in your mouth area, okay? So after you show the person the reading here, you give them 15 minutes, so all the alcohol in your mouth will dissolve, okay? Then you go now to the evidential machine now, that you do the evidential test, okay? This will link to a computer. Also, you put in the person information, the driver's license, the name, and so forth, okay? Basically the same procedure. Use a different straw, okay? Because every time you dispose of the straw, use a different straw, and the same procedure. You allow them to blow. You would get a reading then. But first, that machine would do a blank test, and the blank test would actually tell you the if there is any residue, because it's a machine that is being used maybe from time to time, okay? So the blank test will actually indicate that if there is any residual alcohol, okay? And then we will give you a reading of the actual sample, right? And that reading will actually come from your lungs, because everything here would be dissolved. So you don't allow persons to drink anything that would probably have alcohol in it, okay? And then that machine will actually do a printout. You serve them a copy, you sign the copy for them, as the officer doing this, and you serve them a copy. You actually give you 3 printout, 3 copies of the same thing, okay? And then that's where you would have then go forward and do your arrest and so forth, and inform them of the offense and so. So they would actually get a copy, a signed copy of the reading.
And this is done at the station.
Right, and this is done at the station most of the times. And also, you could also use this instrument here, okay? So even though person is not, there is a charge also drinking and driving, right? We don't normally use this here, but drinking and driving, drinking alcohol while driving is also a charge. And you would use the same machine, and you just insert this here, and you could actually pass it over a drink, and you would capture any. Okay, because normally you meet a driver driving a motor vehicle, you would see you have some
A Caribbean.
beer. But first you have to determine it's alcohol because it could be water in the contents
bottle,
in the
right.
bottle. Okay? So if you want to charge a person for drinking alcohol while driving, you would use this and put it over it. You would also, the same procedure would happen. You would capture it over what, if it's a cup or whatever, it capture, and then you give you a reading. So in that case, so that's where you could charge somebody for drinking alcohol, because
While
you
driving.
determine the contents is alcohol.
Okay. So can I get both charges, drinking while driving and driving under the influence?
No. And the drive under section 62, it speaks to the act of driving while at the same time drinking alcohol. So you're driving along and you have a Caribbean literally drinking driving. You could be ticketed for it for $100. Unless the maximum fine for the one is $500. So this is somewhat different in comparison to you having to stop somebody. They're not drinking alcohol. They have no bottle in their possession. But in some way, as the expert explained, you believe that they would have had some drinks just a while ago. They in some way intoxicated. Remember, they don't have no bottles in their hands. So two different scenarios. One is when they're drinking, and one is where they don't have. But the one where the officer judge normal performance expertise is when situation arises where you don't find them drinking. You only have suspicious actions to deal with, where maybe, as you say, you're stuttering, the scent of alcohol coming from your breath, and all those things. This one we have to perform all those tests on.
Okay, all right. How prevalent is it? Because, like you mentioned earlier, Sergeant Williams, a lot of times when we have accidents and so we determine that alcohol played a part, but being from the traffic department, you would actually know for a fact. Is it that prevalent that we have a lot of people, or most of our accidents are caused by drinking and driving?
Not most of our accidents. 10% of the accidents that we have on a daily, monthly basis, that in some way, alcohol is a contributing factor. Sometimes most of those accidents, those persons after being tested have not reached the required limit. But because their judgment was being impaired, maybe persons would have had one or two Caribbean or some form of alcohol, and having the judgment impaired is one of the contributing factors to the accident. So the answer is whether or not they was drunk, for want of a better word. Hardly. As I tell you, 10% of the accidents on a monthly basis, alcohol is one of the contributing factors. Because you see a lot of this, especially around this time of year, we have a lot of activities, a lot of partying, a lot of, I don't want to call it reveling and all those things, but a lot of things that is affiliated with drinking alcohol. Most of our drivers do have a few drinks and drive thereafter. Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's take a break and then we're going to come back inside with more. You're tuned into To The Point here on Classic 105 GBN platforms. We're speaking to officers of the Traffic Department of the RGPF. To The Point, we'll be right back after these messages. Then I'll make.
We support you at every stage of your life.
For business,
for your education,
for your financial freedom,
for that new ride.
Upgrade your life with the Communal. Contact us today.
Ultratech gasoline and diesel. Available only at Rubis stations.
Welcome to Nurses Care, a new home healthcare company on Ireland, changing the way you receive healthcare. From registered nurses and aides to medical doctors and qualified physicians, we offer a wide range of healthcare services, from monitoring chronic conditions and medications to elderly care, pediatric care, and maternity nurses, to even housekeeping and case management. We offer 24/7 in-house healthcare services. So contact us today for your in-house consultation at 439-3928.
Let's start the new year on a high, a detox high, because it's detox time again at Nirvana Detox Center, a natural health store. Check out our many detox packages starting from $100 or get 15% off on colonic irrigation therapy. Detoxing can help with liver and blood cleansing, weight loss, constipation, acid reflux, kidney stones, heavy metal removal, gas and bloating, and more. Call or WhatsApp us on 231-6642, 418-7115, or 449-7753. Ask about our delivery options. Visit us now. Bruce Street Mall, store number 1208, or Belmont St. George's, close to the Fall Edge area. Our opening hours are Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Nirvana Detox Center and Natural Health Store. Detox your way to health. These specials ends on March 31st or while stocks last.
Welcome back to The Point. We are speaking with officers of the Traffic Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force. With me in studio are Sergeant Kevon Williams and Constable Andy George. Gentlemen, before we go to our viewers and listeners, I want to, let me see how I should put it. As Grenadians, we like to try to talk our way out of things. And if the police pulls us over, we always have an excuse why you shouldn't charge us or arrest us. So my question is, when can the police charge me, arrest and or charge me for whether it be driving under the influence or drinking while driving? Do you have to catch me in the act?
That's what the law say. What Section 62B says is that as soon as a police officer has reasonable evidence to suspect that you is under the influence of alcohol, and you here being the driver of the vehicle, the person in charge of the vehicle, the person attempting to drive. So you don't necessarily have to be that you literally have to be on the road driving a motor vehicle, or the motor vehicle must be in motion. The law says if you're attempting to drive, if you're in charge of the vehicle, you could also be confronted by the police. So the law is clear on it, and if for chance you refuse, take it to mean that you will have just come from a party and you're about to go into your vehicle and the police were to confront you because of your condition, your physical appearance, your staggering, the starting of your voice, and all those things that would draw his suspicion that you're under the influence of alcohol. He could stop you there and then and request that a specimen be taken from you so that a breathalyzer. So you don't necessarily need to know that they don't necessarily have to be driving or the vehicle have to be in motion for that test or the request for that breathalyzer examination to be done, and that the police having suspicion could stop you at any time if you believe that you're in charge of the vehicle or you're attempting to drive or you're driving.
All right, let me see if I can take some questions, and then we're going to get to narrowing down on how we can be safe for the Christmas season. But let me give myself Christmas alert. I mean Carnival. I like my Christmas. Let me go to our first caller of the program. Good morning, caller.
Greetings, our blossom.
Morning, how you do?
What is my blossoming blossom? And I recognize you are well blossoming, and you have to blossom. You are well protected by the red cap.
What you're telling me, because
correct. Now listen, I did not get everything, but your last question to our officers. You see, valuable information. Just be very careful in having effective communication. So I want to question them, and they can clarify for me, and maybe those who might be lacking as me. You ask them a question, and the response they give, for me, it questions the objectivity for the breath tester and what really causes a contribute accident. To me, the bottom line is mental judgment, blurring. So you ask the question, and the officer responded to you by saying that not all accidents, 10% of the accident, comes because judgment impaired. However, the breath analyzer will not pick up that. No. Again, I'm saying I could be wrong. Let us clarify that. To me, the objective of the breath analyzer and to charge someone for driving under the influence of alcohol is because his mental judgment is go off. So in other words, the breath analyzer has to be accurate enough. So the slightest indication that drinking too much or being under the influence of alcohol will pick up that problem in judgment, which will contribute to an accident. So what does it clarify? There's two things here. You either testing for you're feeling man junk, so the breath analyzer proved that, or you're testing to prevent accident because of misjudgment. Let us look back at that question and answer it better. I could be wrong, so give some clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, caller. Officers?
And Blossom, if I may to respond to the caller, because one is under the influence of alcohol, what is expected from a prudent driver on the road may not be that person's actual behavior on the day in question because he's under the influence of alcohol. His judgment may be impaired. He might not be able to make proper judgment. He would not be able to perform as a reasonable and prudent driver would do in terms of being misled with, for example, the speed limit in a particular zone, the fact that he may not be in a position to obey signage, traffic lights and other signs, for example. And this would cause him, in some cases, to be involved or the end product being an accident. If your judgment is impaired, you don't comply to signs and signals. You cannot make proper judgment in terms of speed and other things. Most of the times it leads to an accident. When it's expected that you stop, you may proceed. When it's expected that you drive at 40 miles an hour, you may be tempted to drive over that limit because of your condition. To the contrary, if you're sober, you would certainly respect the speed limits in zones, signage, signs and everything, and this what is expected from prudent drivers on the road. The breathalyzer is only there to check and give the police a guide that because of what would have happened, your level of alcohol in your system might have been a contributing factor. And that's when when at times we arrest because you might have gone past the required limit of 70 micrograms.
All right, no more callers. Let me go to Facebook. Somebody on Facebook says, sorry about that. Somebody on Facebook says, in Grenada, a common indicator of a drunken driver is zigzagging in the road. In Grenada, they cannot suspect you because the road is bad. You must zigzag. Is that, what should I say, an often occurrence of drunken drivers zigzagging in Grenada?
Yes. Thank you again. Okay, we have to accept the condition of the road, right? We have potholes and so forth. But zigzag, I mean, you would if you had to swing from a pothole is normal. You would avoid pothole as much as possible. But a drunken driver would sway for a great distance, and that is totally different from, a pothole.
You can tell the difference.
You're able to determine the difference, okay? And I don't know if that would help, but
I agree.
You being on this scene of determine you would able, because even though you don't have a reason. For instance, if you're following a person and you see it swaying left or right, and you would have go and engage a person, right? As there is no fast rule as to what when you engage in them, you will look for other signs. You will look for the speech, you will look for the staggering, you will try to get the alcohol scent and so forth. So you don't just use one isolated situation where you see the person sway left or right, you know. And sometimes person could be days, maybe through medication, person, you know. So sometimes not just because you see somebody operating a particular way, you just put it on alcohol. You know, when you train, you train to identify certain things. Okay?
Right.
And if you are an untrained person, sometimes it doesn't know. But you are a trained person, trained mind, you will just see something and you will be able to make that proper analysis of whether or not the person is under the influence of alcohol, or the person probably be a diabetic and the sugar run low and all these things on them. So I don't think this zigzag with the road. We have to accept the condition of the road. I mean, some places pretty bad, but I don't think that would be able to sidetrack officer and to determine whether or not the road you know, or the manner of driving is because of the road and not being under the influence.
Alright, you seem to have lost that caller. Somebody on Facebook asks, how safe is a breathalyzer test in this time with health issues?
As I would have explained earlier on, okay? Every tube, every tube is, as I said, if I'm a civilian and a police approach me with a tube that already open, I mean, I wouldn't encourage in compliance, but I would not put a tube that is unsealed into my mouth. That said, is the duty of the person who is doing the breathalyzer test. If the person wants to inspect the tube before it's unsealed, is all fair game?
Right.
Okay. So we understand being the COVID time and so forth. Okay. Officers would have to use a mask and all these things on them. You know. So I think it's pretty safe. You know, it's about 99%. It won't be 100%, but it's 99%. I said, what we have to take into consideration, the test, the straw that is being used, have to be sealed. Okay. And every test, if you move from the FST test to the eventual test, it has to be a new straw.
Right.
Okay. It's showed by the person, and they would accept that. Okay. So I think it's pretty safe.
All right. Good morning, caller.
Hi, good morning, and good morning to the officers. Very, very good program. One thing, though, I'm a little bit surprised that, are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, that if you actually see someone drinking and you prove that it's alcohol, that you would not do a breathalyzer. I mean, we heard of, but here you actually found someone drinking, and you'll ticket them and let them continue driving without even testing them. Let's imagine it's a public transport, a bus, whatever it is. To me, the fact that they're drinking is the reason why you should do the proper test and see if they're fit to continue driving after you have ticketed them. I have two major problems. They don't have to do with alcohol, but they concern me. I live in the South, and I need to get some clarification about roundabouts. What do you understand as giving way as opposed to someone overtaking you on a roundabout? I have that issue on the Sugar Mill roundabout every day that I travel out there. People feel that once they're on the right of you, they can be miles behind you. They can overtake you. Where do you draw the line between giving way and someone overtaking you? Some guys behind you even they overtake you and come to the right of you. Buses do it just before you get to the roundabout so that they can get through the roundabout before you. So some kind of clarity must be given to separate the two activities. The other one I have, which is very funny, in every country you have roads that are allowed for faster traffic, and they are priority routes for buses, for school kids, and other things like that. To me, the fastest road in Grenada is the Morris Bishop Highway, and the busiest time of the day is usually before 8 in the morning and after 4 in the evening. Now, what is the wisdom when everybody's trying to get up from home on the busiest road on the island, having a police officer with a radar gun. It's also the road to the airport. Someone may be trying to catch a flight. I don't know what percentage of accidents in Grenada occur there around that hour of the day. But invariably, somebody's out there around rush hour with a radar gun doing what? Could you explain to me the wisdom behind putting them there at that time of the day and justifying it with the frequency of accidents around that time on that area? That's my question.
Thank you very much. Caller, officers?
All right. Thanks for the question, caller. I'm going to attempt to answer the last question first. We are obligated to, as law enforcement, to check speed as part of our responsibilities and ensure that persons drive within the speed limit. And funny enough, the time that that persons will speed the most is at rush hour. Strange enough, persons would speed to get to the job because they're late, and for all strange reasons, they would speed around the 4 o'clock time, thereabout, and 8 o'clock. It's our duty to prevent that from happening, and hence the reason we ample time to do the radar check during the peak hours. We speak about the Morris Bishop Highway. It's one of our trouble areas. Persons, it's an open area with no homes, so persons use the opportunity to speed a lot of times on that portion of road. And you won't believe it, some of our most serious accidents come from the Point Saline and Morris Bishop area. Overturning and major damage and injuries is caused from those accidents. Hence the reason why we position ourselves to be at Morris Bishop and Point Saline area in the rush hour, as I told you just now, to prevent that from happening. It's been working. We've seen some progress. Twice per week, the operation is been done there. Could one person's expect police on the ground twice per week or 3 times per week at Morris Bishop and Point Saline public road. And as I told you just now, it's really to prevent persons from having accidents, and especially serious accidents. The other question that speaks to the roundabout and what happens there, I myself is privileged to observe persons attempting to overtake on roundabout. It's an offense to conduct any overtaking maneuver at an intersection or roundabout. So persons ample times will be charged for that. The yield sign or give way sign, it means to stop and give way to traffic coming on your right at roundabout. We've been at least trying as much as practical in the Sugar Mill area to paint that area to have persons know where to stop, and it's been working. The buses is always a challenge for us in terms of the manner in which they drive, and you won't believe it, is one of our biggest customers. They are the ones that gets the most ticket, and one of the tickets that has been issued to them on a daily basis is for inappropriate maneuver or overtaking, and not only on a roundabout, but that portion of road that leads to that roundabout when you come while you're driving along the highway from the southbound end. They always try to beat one another by to reach the bus stop, that CK bus stop. As I told you just now, it's our biggest challenge, but we always address those issues when we observe it. If we don't see it, we don't see it. But so the minute time persons on the ground, wardens or police observe those things, we do take actions. Speaking to persons, ticketing is one of the measures we use.
Okay, let me respond to that question and make mention of, when you spoke about the breathalyzer and when you observe persons drinking, right? And being ticketed. What we have to understand is that persons could be drinking. You could get a ticket for drinking alcohol while driving. Okay, so even though you have done a breathalyzer test and the person is not above the limit, they cannot be arrested. Okay, but they could get a ticket for drinking alcohol, and I would have explained and demonstrate the instrument that we use just to check the presence of alcohol in the drink. Okay, so it probably could be the first beer, and they will have taken one sip. That quantity is not enough to bring them above the limit. So in that case, they would be ticketed, and they are not above the limit. Okay, so drinking alcohol and driving, that is a ticketable offense. Okay, and firstly, I will explain. We have to prove that the content is alcohol. Okay, so there is a difference where the person will be arrested and the person is being ticketed. Okay, so I don't know if that would give you some clarity on your question. And
so once you're under the limit for driving under the influence? Let's say the limit is 5. Let's say if you're 4, you can be ticketed and still be given the opportunity to drive away.
Yes. And
but once you're 5 and over, then you can be arrested.
Right. And as you say, drinking. So you have to say the person drinking.
Yeah.
So if you would have called on a scene as an expert call on the scene, and you have do a breathalyzer test and the person is 45, you would have known that the person, let me say, close to the limit. Okay, the person is 66, 67, 68. Okay, the excess is 70 and above. Right? You would have known that the person would have consumed some alcohol, but you cannot charge them for drinking and driving. But you know, you will have that cases where you will see the be a passenger on buses, you will see the conductor would stop and go to a shop and buy a beer, 2 beer and 2 Guinness, okay? Give the driver one and they going on the road and they plying the trade and they continue to drink, right? If the officer would have seen the action, he would have stopped them, test the content, then you would give them for drinking alcohol while driving, okay? But if you would have gone and seen and you meet them, the person is 60. So the officer on the scene would now determine, okay, listen, he would include that in the report. Because I would have explained to that the alcohol in the system would escape through breath, okay, when you breathe and over a period of time. So maybe, and a lot of time the officer will call on the scene, probably the officer, the first responder would go, and then if they would have observed something, they would call the expert. So by the time the expert get there, it's probably about half an hour. Right? And within half an hour, your limit could now be below the legally accepted standard. Right. But sometimes at the scene of the accident, when the accident actually happened, it would have been 75. Okay. Sometimes you come half an hour after and then they now go down to 60.
Right.
So you cannot arrest them. But the investigating officer would now indicate that, okay, a breathalyzer was test was, they would take into consideration the accident happened at 12 o'clock. So when they themselves take an hour before they call the police, after there is a misunderstanding as to who would accept liability. So when the police get on the scene half an hour after, because that's when the information comes in.
Right.
So maybe at the scene, at the time of the accident, the person was above the limit, but when the police get there, right. Okay? So it's not something where you could arrest, but the investigating officer would normally indicate, okay, a test was done and the person is 67. So if the magistrate or whoever want to incur that the person at the time of the accident, the person is above, you know, right. So that is one of the challenges that we have, that person will try to sort it out, and when they don't have, and sometimes the place too, if the accident happened probably in Calivini, the farthest point, sometimes, and the time of the day, by the time the information comes, is within half an hour, a lot of alcohol could escape your system. Right. You know? But so you get the person under the limit, but that doesn't mean that the person, at the time, the person wasn't above the limit.
Right. What I want quickly for us to, the message I want us to send is that we're not out there to arrest persons for being over the prescribed limit. The bottom line is that if you, for example, have 66 micrograms of alcohol in your system and an accident occurs, the alcohol content in your system may be or could be one of the contributing factors to the accident. And what the bottom line is, you're just trying to have person avoid drinking and driving, not to trick the system in any way by altering the concentration of alcohol in your system, but to abstain from drinking alcohol and driving. Too many accidents will also.
Agreed. It's almost time for us to wrap up, officers, but I want to get to some advice that you can give to revelers as well as organizers, promoters. As we get deeper into the carnival season, we have weekend activities taking place, fetting and reveling and so on and so forth. What kind of advice can you give to our organizers, our promoters of these events? Because they're going to grow in frequency.
Well, most importantly, as I mentioned just now, avoidance. We realize, as you rightfully say, we're getting into the busy season, a lot of hype, a lot of activities. Persons maybe as drivers tempted to drink and drive. We promoters and organizers, we wish that you would, in your wisdom, organize what we call a sober zone at the end of the activities. Rather than persons, after they would have consumed all this alcohol, go straight into the action of driving. If you only would adhere, maybe you could team up with insurance companies, have them get on board, have a sober zone, so persons would go there, drink some coffee, drink water, take a little 5. Maybe we could get some cats, take a little 5, relax themselves, and I guess you could even have us incorporate us in your actions. Let us come. The expert is here, Constable George is here. I know if you're in the south, you'll be willing to come and do a field test on persons before they go behind the wheel, and to measure the volume of alcohol in the system before those persons drive. We really trying to avoid the amount of accidents where alcohol consumption is concerned. So if you only do that sober zone for us, persons would be arrested, persons would be revived, and I'm sure we would certainly have a reduction in the amount of accidents involving where drinking alcohol is concerned. It's a really positive for us. We wish that as organizers you look in that direction, not only for Carnival or not that season, but more or less nearly after all activities you do that. It will really help us. In the south of the island alone, we have 60 plus accidents per month. That's way too much. It's really a challenge for us, logistically and otherwise, so we're begging of you promoters to consider what was just said, and maybe it would be a positive.
Yes, so you say, hold on. I'm living in the south, so 60 plus accident per month in the south?
Yeah, that's the range we're at.
Reported cases.
And that's, as Constable George would say, reported cases that we responded to.
So, are you privy to information as to is that the area with the most reported accidents per month, the south?
Yes, I believe, yes. Island-wide, the south of the island has the most accidents as a single station per month.
I take offense as a resident in the south. Let me see. There was a question on WhatsApp. Somebody on WhatsApp asks, the police come on scene with their small alcohol and want to charge people for the same thing that they drink and drive as well. Who is charging the police?
Well, I cannot speak to any situation. I don't know of any situation where police, be it in South or anywhere else in the island, responded to accident scenes or any report of a criminal nature while being under the influence of alcohol. Maybe if the caller or the person asking the question know of a particular situation, maybe they could refer it to the nearest police station or the Community Relations Department. But from where I sit, I cannot speak to any information regarding any police officer attending to accident scenes being under the influence.
Okay, so let me go back on, is this Facebook? Somebody says no alcohol should be sold during 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on the St. George's bus terminal. Do you think that can help in your fight against drinking and driving or driving under the influence?
The idea here is not to avoid persons from drinking alcohol. What we want to do is to avoid persons from drinking alcohol while driving, or if they intend to drive, refrain. That's the whole motive of it. The consumption, the selling of alcohol is not the problem. The consumption, if you decide to drive in charge of any motor vehicle, you should refrain from consuming alcohol, and that's the bottom line. Alcohol could be sold, for example, in a public service vehicle, somebody could be selling alcohol in the back seat. As a driver, you should not involve yourself in consuming alcohol. Let the passenger drink the alcohol, you stay away. And that's the message that we're trying to send, Blossom.
All right, officers, thank you both very much for being our guests this morning. Any final thoughts you'd like to share as we wrap up?
Yes, let me say thanks for having me, Blossom. And I trust that the information that was discussed today, that it was well taken by the general listening public, and person would adhere to certain things that was said on this platform, and going forward you will see a change in attitude, and we'll have to enforce that law, that alcohol law breathalyzer test, at least in the future. Thank you very much.
Blossom, before in closing, I just want persons to know that you don't necessarily have to be driving the motor vehicle for a request of specimen. If you're in charge of a vehicle, if you're attempting to drive a motor vehicle on the roadway, or you're driving a motor vehicle, an officer being on suspicion could ask you, stop you, or question you if you're outside of the vehicle and request a specimen from you of your breath or blood. Failure to cooperate would or may result in your arrest. So you just need to be mindful of that. You don't necessarily have to be drinking. So long as you're in charge of the vehicle, you're attempting to drive, you could be asked for a specimen. And that's the bottom line of it.
So suppose I open the driver's door to just reach in the middle console to get something.
So long as the officer on view sees that you're staggering, you suspect that the law say reasonable suspicion that you may be under the influence of alcohol. You have your key in your hand. He of the opinion that believe that you in charge of the vehicle and he was attempting to drive, he could call you, speak to you. Police is not human. It's not beast. He could call you, question you, speak to you, and if need be, ask for a specimen of breath or blood from you to prove that or to ensure that you're okay, you're not drunk in any way, and if per chance, give you some advice.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much, officers, for being our guests this morning. I appreciate the information you shared. I'm sure a lot of people can use it going forward, especially as we get deeper into social activities, Carnival coming up. So thank you both very much, and I'll be looking for you all on the road while I drink my water and my malt. So enjoy the rest of your day, officers, and thank you very much.
Thank
again.
you, Blossom.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning into the program. Appreciate both all of you for tuning in, whichever platform you used. That's the end of the program, the end of my time for today. Enjoy the rest of your thankful Thursday. GT is up next with Mid-Morning Buzz. I'll be back tomorrow morning, God willing, when I link up with the sister station Hot 98.